Hello and welcome back to Talon 101. This time we're gonna cover down back 4, or better known as ankle biter. And that's a very appropriate name because Hwoarang is certainly biting his opponent's ankles every time he throws out down back 4. And at a basic level, when you are starting out with Hwoarang, down back 4-4 is the next button you press because it's just like, hey, I'm gonna hit you in your ankle and I'm gonna suddenly hit you on top. Because if you try to interrupt, or if the opponent tries to interrupt you after down back 4-4, you are getting pretty good damage off this. Of course, again, at a basic level. The higher you go, you know that you can do FS3 or back 3 right after for even more damage. And this is a basic mix-up you could run, like just down back 4 by itself, and then like down back 4-4 if the opponent interrupts. But the issue does arise for this basic mix-up when the opponent is crouching. Because if you do down back 4 by itself, you're punishable, right? You try to keep that safe with down back 4-4, but if they duck the second hit and punish correctly, then yeah, the second hit's not gonna beat them. The only time you can make this low safe, and that's like the higher you go in terms of like mid-level to like high level now, is when RFS F4 comes into play after throwing out down back 4. So again, you hold any direction, back or forward, and Hwoarang will get big damage right after this. And not only can this low keep itself quote-unquote safe, he can also get really big damage, most especially if heat is active, because one counter hit means winning the game. Of course, let's review frame data. And down back 4 comes out at 16 frames, is -8 on hit, and -12 on block. It surprisingly is -1 on counter hit, and will always keep Hwoarang in left foot forward after doing down back 4. This is again the base and the foundation of down back 4-4 and down back 4 into right flamingo stance. We're gonna keep our eyes here on ankle biter first. So again, this is the fastest standing low in left foot forward. As you can see, it comes out at 16 frames. Just for comparison, down back 3 comes out at 19, down 4 comes out at 19, and down 3-4 comes out at 17 frames. If we include a sidestep move in sidestep 4, that comes out at 19 frames. So again, still the fastest low. Now, it's also the third damaging low in left foot forward with the least risk, because down back 3 comes out at 12 damage at -13. Down 4 comes out at 7 damage at -17. Down 3-4 comes out at 20 damage and -16 for as long as the opponent does punish it correctly. And SS4 comes out with 18 damage at -13. So both down back 3 and SS4 run the risk of getting launched against Kazuya, or characters with 13 frame while standing launchers and chunky punishes whilst at 13 frames while standing. Down 4 is probably the riskiest of them all because again, 17 frames without its extension to like keep it safe on hit for -13. And of course, if it gets ducked, right, the first hit, launch punishable. Same thing with down 3-4. So that's all about if your opponent is able to punish it correctly. So without worrying about that, down back 4 by itself is simply just -12. And it does 14 damage. So if you don't include sidestep 4, which is 18, it's becoming its second highest damaging low. But if you include sidestep 4, then it's the third damaging low after sidestep 4 and down 3-4, which is pretty good. So that means there's little to no risk for throwing out a low that bites the opponent's ankles. So it's just free damage. And not only is it quote-unquote free damage, it has some pretty good tracking too. So this is sidestep left, and if we go 0 on block, which is like standing 2, you'll catch Lily from stepping towards the left. Change that into like standing 1, which is your basic jab, which is +1. Lily's not stepping there either. And we just boost this to like sidewalk left, right? Still not moving away from sidewalk left at all. The only time Lily or any other character can really avoid down back 4 is if they step towards the right. You see that? At +1, Hwoarang does not hit Lily anymore. Even if we're slightly off axis, doesn't work anymore. Even if you do it at 0 on block, doesn't work either. The only time this does work is that if you are +3 on hit. So +3 comes out after like RFF 1-1, and now Lily cannot step towards the right at all. We can boost this to sidewalk right just to show for demonstration. RFF 1-1, down back 4. No sidewalk right. So basically, the more you have frames, the more this move is basically homing. So if we go to, let's say, +5, which is a very common situation, whether you do it off LFS1 or RFS2, Lily's not stepping towards the right, nor is she stepping towards the left. So it becomes like your pseudo-homing low the moment you're +3 and above. But if you're playing within lower frames, it's only tracking towards the left, not the right. Now, its reward is meager, right? Because you're mainly looking like at the damage. Like, oh yeah, 14 damage and I got to like sneakily hit you with a standing low and down back 4. What if I wanted to be greedy and press my button again? Because again, I'm -8. There's only so many things you can really do. So if we tell the opposing Lily to simply jab, right? So Lily's gonna jab here. It's like, what can you do? Can I down jab? I mean, down jab's a high crush, right? So now -8. You don't get enough frames to high crush yet. So that was down back 1 and down back 2 respectively. What you have to do is crouch, and then you can punish an opponent who's gonna check you with a jab. Or even like crouch and then down jab. But this no longer works if the opponent simply, catches you with a mid, because now you can't even duck. But even then, it's still a guessing game. So you have to more or less guess if an opponent would check you with a mid or not. Because if they're not checking you with a mid, then yeah, you certainly can steal your turn and even potentially get a launch if you're fast enough. But you cannot down jab, you cannot power crush, nor can you do an evasive move. So don't try to be greedy after down back 4 on hit. The next thing we'll look at is down back 4-4. This is ankle biter into crescent kick. The second kick comes out at 17 frames. Of course, as you saw earlier, if the second hit hits or if it's counter hit, the full string is a natural combo and it will knock the opponent down for guaranteed damage. Now, this move is -1 on block. So if the opponent does block this move, well, you still have stuff you can do. And again, Hwoarang does remain in left foot forward right after doing crescent kick. So let's talk about the on-hit situation first. So again, whether it's counter hit or if the second hit hit by itself, your options are FS3 and back 3 for guaranteed damage. Now, it does not jail. So like the opponent can duck this even if they get hit. So if you just throw it out and the opponent's aware of the second hit and they're not pressing a button either, then yeah, they can avoid this because it doesn't jail. Again, it only combos on counter hit. But if the opponent does block, right, it's not the end of the world because it's -1. -1 means you can do a lot. So that's evasive moves right away. So back 1 does not beat a standing jab, but you can parry a standing jab. And since it's also -1, you can still step into a small punish, step into a bigger punish, for as long as you have the timing down, potentially backdash, depending on their option. That was a backdash into a down jab. That's backdash into DF2, and you can power crush for as long as, again, they're not pressing a grab or a low. So you can still do a lot of stuff on block, but the main use for down back 4-4 is, of course, if the opponent's pressing a button. And one situation where this happens a lot is that if you break a throw, so let's say you tech a throw and that throw leaves you at +2. In this situation, Lily's at +2 because I'm throwing the throw and they're breaking it. But yeah, just imagine you're the one +2 here. Typically, you have opponents throwing out power crushes in this situation. So once they throw out a power crush, you can punish them very fast with like down back 4, because again, that's gonna come out as a 14 frame low high. You can still do it at like a basic level if like they're gonna press a button or not. And this move still comes out pretty fast, by the way. So like, even if you're waiting for them or like seeing if they're gonna duck it or not, sometimes an opponent won't even move because that comes out pretty fast. And not only that, they have to look out for this option, which is down back 4 into Flamingo, which is the next one we're gonna go to because these two moves are pretty connected to each other. So down back 4 into right Flamingo stance for as long as you hold back or forward, it's a 16 frame move. So basically the second kick no longer exists. Hwoarang now keeps his right leg up in the air and it's +3 on hit, -1 on block, and +10 on counter hit. And Hwoarang will always go into right Flamingo stance for as long as you hold the direction. So on hit, this move is a quick entry into right Flamingo stance in neutral because you're checking the opponent with RFS F4 first, which is connected to on block, and we'll get to that shortly. But it's not something for offense right away because if the opponent does decide to simply challenge, right, with a jab, you trade. So it's basically the same as like your 1-2-4 or 2-4 or even up 4 on block. Well, neutral with a slight advantage because again, RFS F4 exists. But it's not a replacement for offense because you can't go straight into RFS down 4 and you can like do RFS down 3. But again, see, look, -5, not even counter hit for +2. Now, if it does connect on counter hit, the only thing that's guaranteed is RFS F4. So just RFS F4, and that's completely fine on counter hit, most especially if heat is active, because if it does connect, that's a free launch into, well, big damage. I don't have to explain that any further. The one I do want to talk about a lot more is this move on block. So if an opponent does try to punish down back 4 or down back 4-4, right? They'll successfully do that with a while standing move. The only time they get interrupted is because you can enter right flamingo stance and punish them with RFS F4-4 or RFS F4 by itself. So you take away the while standing move with RFS F4. Now, if they want to beat RFS F4, their first option is to use a down jab right after they block this move. Because now you can't throw out RFS F4, right? And that's the first hurdle. Is the opponent gonna try to stop me from doing RFS F4? And here's another thing you need to know on block. Flying Eagle is great if the opponent does get hit by this move, right? If they get hit by this move and they try to down jab, Flying Eagle takes this away. No problem whatsoever. So like if RFS F4 can't handle this down jab, RFS 3 slide 4 definitely has your back. But if this happens on block, RFS F4 right can't be the down jab. Try to throw out Flying Eagle. See how I get interrupted? Hwoarang's moving. He's definitely moving. You can see him do it. Yeah. There you go. That should be Flying Eagle. He gets interrupted right there. You cannot throw out Flying Eagle versus a 10-frame down jab at all. You cannot. The only time you could beat a down jab is that if they use the other down jab, which comes out at 11 frames, right? So that's still RFS 3. That's still RFS 3. But now that's Flying Eagle. You see how it beats an 11-frame down jab cleanly? We're gonna bring that back into the 10-frame down jab. And I still can't get it off. So now if the move does get blocked, you have more of a problem. Because now you need to rely on RFS of forward 3. Because RFS of forward 3 will beat a 10-frame down jab, no problem. But I mean, you can still do this both on hit and on block because it'll still serve the same purpose when beating a down jab. It's just that, again, 25-frame move versus a 16-frame mid. So the speed does hurt. And this is where the next hurdle comes around. So now you're trying to beat a down jab, right? Whether that be in hit or on block, and you're still deciding whether you want to do Flying Eagle or not. Most especially like if you're unable to recognize if it does get blocked or hit. The next thing is the opponent going to jab float me, right? So if I try to do Flying Eagle, yeah. So like, okay, first they're gonna down jab to prevent RFS F4, right? Because they don't want to get hit by that. And then now you're gonna try to do an airborne move to beat the down jab. And then now they're gonna try to beat your airborne move with a jab. And that's where it gets a little bit tough. So this is what I mean by it's always a quick entry into neutral, because you're always dancing around this situation over and over again. So this is pretty tough to gain for offense, because that's not only the other defensive option they can do. Like, if they get hit by this move, they can just simply step. Now, of course, yes, they're not stepping RFS F4, right? But like, if you just boil it down to like those two options, they're stepping Flying Eagle or they're stepping RFS of forward 3. So like now, the only thing that's keeping them in place is RFS F4. And SSR Duck is such a very good option against down back 4 that it leaves you to do RFS forward 3 or RFS F4 every single time. Because all your other options, right? They whiff. They whiff. They whiff. They whiff. Yeah, so sidestep right continues to be a pretty big problem. And the only time you can throw that out is like if the opponent's hesitating. Not if they're not hesitating. Because if they continue to jab you there on hit, right? And you throw out RFS down 4, then you're interrupted again. So there's a big mini game that you have to, or mind game rather, that you have to keep going with your opponent, both on hit and on block. So you need to clear those hurdles first before you can use this move for offense, whether that be on hit or on block if you're trying to like bait them, you know, to do something, right? So it's a tough move to use, and it's not something you should ever think of replacing down 3-4 with. Because down 3-4, you're never thinking about that, right? Because as soon as down 3-4 hits and they try to press a button, that's more or less what you're getting all the time. You don't have to think about it as much. It's only on block where it's just like, okay, I pray that their timing on RFS F4 is bad. And like, if they're late, I still have to like gamble on RFS F4 or gamble on RFS back 4. So again, it's a neutral low with 3 different variants, wherein you can just simply check your opponent with down back 4, hit them with the full string and down back 4-4 if they're pressing buttons a lot. And in situations where you can just like stuff the power crusher very quickly. And then on block, you're playing this little mini game on whether you're gonna do an airborne move or you're gonna do RFS F4. And the last thing before I miss it, right, is that if this move does get blocked, right, just remember it's GG's. There's nothing you can do if you enter right flamingo stance on block. That's another thing. If the opponent has rage, you may have like put yourself in a really bad spot. So at that point, you need to hold down back 4 and not enter right flamingo stance so that you're not in trouble. Besides that, down back 4 is a pretty damn good low in Tekken 8, most especially because it does have RFS of forward 3 and RFS 3 slide 4 to help beat crouching moves in like down jab. So again, 10 frame down jab, RFS of forward 3 is really, really good. You can't even throw out air blade because again, it doesn't come out. That's flying eagle. But if they throw out again 11 frames, then flying eagle will start to win. And air blade still doesn't win there on block ever. Air blade is a move you're only considering every time you get this move to connect on hit. So you have 3 low crushing mid options on hit, 2 low crushing or 1 low crushing mid option on block. Besides that, even if you don't play that mini game on down back 4, for as long as you get that 1 counter hit with heat, life is good. And perhaps that's all that really mattered, because this damage is insane for a 16 frame standing low. But yeah, that's everything I know about ankle biter down back 4, or ankle biter into pressing kick. Again, I've been Frontier. That's been the lesson for this video. And thank you for watching.